I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. Hi and welcome to Learning for Life in UK test part 473 by doing a leg stretching. And if you participate in the leg stretching, this is your risk. And we're starting with the leg stretching. We are bringing one leg in front, the heel onto the ground, and we're pulling the toes in. And from time to time, we're going to contract the quad muscles. So we're starting with contraction of the quad muscles. The idea is that we're going through all the book. We had done all the book and we pretty much know it all completely. But that we're now taking always one little subject and try to learn it in the way that we can hold a little presentation. Down in 1 minute, all the information is already here. We're releasing contraction, but keeping it like that. Now the next thing here then will be a bit more a serious subject. So this is about slavery and the slave trade, this subject. And the idea is we're contracting it, but we're now preparing a video which we will maybe even shoot in around 8-9 minutes at the end of this video. We're going to do 2-3 takes, otherwise we're going to do it in the next video again, about this, and we want to name that video that we will shoot the abolishing of slavery in Britain, or the slavery in Britain and the abolishment of slavery in the British Empire. Probably that, the abolishment of slavery in the British Empire. And now we're trying to prepare that video, that we can make that in a few minutes, and we're releasing a contraction. But keep a stretch. The slave trade. Slavery itself was illegal, or in Britain itself, slavery was illegal. But British ships were transporting, and we're releasing the contraction for last time, were transporting slaves from West Africa to America and to the Caribbean. They were forced to work in tobacco and sugar plantations. The living and working conditions, and we're contracting it last time, the living and working conditions and also the travel conditions on the British ships are horrible, very bad, and many people died. Okay. In Britain, in the late 1700s, the first anti-slavery groups formed, and we're switching the legs. And the people who worked were Quakers. And they petitioned in Parliament to ban the practice of trading slaves. And we're putting the toes in and we're contracting the leg of the quad muscles. And so the Quakers formed in the late 1700s anti-slavery groups, and they petitioned in Parliament. This is the point I never really paid attention to. They petitioned, so these Quaker anti-slavery groups petitioned Parliament to ban the practice. To name a person, or there's also, and here to mention, at that point I'm going to mention, it's not good, the formulation. William Wilberforce, for example, was someone, he was an evangelical Christian, and he was a member of Parliament. I'm rehearsing a little bit. And we are releasing the contraction, but we give him a leg there. And he played also an important part in changing the law. Now, and actually that happened when the public opinion was turned against the slave trade, or the population of the United Kingdom, the population living in Britain, the people of Britain were now against it, had now turned the public opinion against it. We're contracting again. Were now against the slave trade. The public opinion had changed against the practice of slave trade. And in 1807, that is the first key date, it became illegal to trade with slaves on British ships or from British ports. So 1807, slave trading became illegal on British ships or from British ports. And we're releasing the contraction for last time. 1807. 1833 followed when the Emancipation Act. And with that, slavery was throughout the empire stopped, abolished, forbidden, prohibited, ended. And we're contracting a last time. The Royal Navy also started to stop slave ships of other countries and to free the slaves and to punish the slave traders for trading slaves. Also, following the Emancipation Act of 1833, 2 million Indian and Chinese workers were employed to replace the now freed slaves throughout the empire. The next exercise, back to the outside. Do we have to name where we worked? I don't think so, but we're gonna learn it. The anchor chain stability test. We're having the leg at the outside, we are front of the main part of the body, we're pressing a bit into the ground. Just if you would do it, for example, on sugar plantations in the Caribbean, but previously was tobacco and sugar plantations also, okay. Sugar plantations, probably also tobacco plantations. Sugar plantations on mines in South Africa, railways in East Africa, South Africa, mines, East Africa, railways. Or in the army in Kenya. Mines, railways, in the army in Kenya, on sugar plantations. Let's not name it, that's not fit. So I think we have prepared our video about the abolishing of slavery in the British Empire. And now I don't want to do that while we're doing the leg stretching. We're going to do that afterwards. So let's prepare the next video, which will be something like a very short overview of the American War of Independence. Yeah, and even the key dates of a year of a war and so on. We are releasing the contraction replicate from the leg. Many people who had immigrated to North America believed in ideas of liberty. We have to explain actually the British colonies. In the 1760s, there were substantial, there were many, there were large, we're pressing a last time into the ground, there were colonies, there were British colonies in North America. The people living there had strong ideas of liberty and believed in religious freedom, were well educated and interested in ideas believed in the ideas of liberty. They went there to have religious freedom and they believed strongly in ideas of liberty. The British government wanted to tax the colonies. We're changing the leg outside and pressing again into the ground. The British government wanted to tax the colonies. They saw it as an attack on freedom, but the people in North America didn't want to pay. Let's formulate it that way, easier to understand. And for example, here's a quote possible: no taxation without representation. And the British Parliament. It's not explained yet what it means. And the relationship, the situation between the British and the colonies worsened, got worse. And fighting broke out. In the year 1770, and fighting broke out in the War of Independence broke out. The American War of Independence broke out. We keep the leg up, but we are not stretching anymore into the ground. In the year 1776, 13 of these colonies declare their independence. Wrote the Declaration of Independence and declared their independence from Britain. And said that they had the right to establish their own government. And said that and why they had the right to their own government, to rule themselves. And these American colonies won the War of Independence, and the United States of America, already the United States of America? and the colonies became independent. And I can say it, I don't think it's a problem if I say it 5 years early. And we're stretching again into the ground. I don't think we can do it in this video. Neither the abolishing of slave trade in Britain nor the American War of Independence. A short overview. The American colonies, these 13 colonies, were successful, and we won the war against Britain, and the United States of America became free. Was consequently defeated. They gained independence, and this was when also recognized by Britain in 1783. The last exercise, and I think we will need a whole time of a video for doing it. The hydraulic hardware. Leg at the outside, flexed foot, and we're bringing it up, and again in, again up, and in. Okay, that will be bad. War in France. These are all quite easy things. These are just a few dates and a little bit background. So let's actually try to prepare a third one. In the year 1789, revolution happened, or the French Revolution happened in France. And the French government soon declared war on Britain. I don't really want to start a video with saying that the people will not understand, but there's a lot of background going on. We had here already that Britain was in conflict with France because of the same interests in colonies and expansion of their empires. And also the 100 Years' Wars and so on. So I don't want to just say their new government and they declared war on Britain. That didn't happen out of nothing. And what was here with Bonnie Prince Charlie, supported by the French army, 1746, just 40 years earlier, landing in Ireland. So I did not start there, so I don't want to start the video with that, so I might gonna skip it all, or explain differently. War broke out, fighting started. Yes, war, no, declared war, so war broke out between Britain and France. Napoleon was the emperor of France, and the war continued also under Napoleon. Soon after the French Revolution, war started between Britain or France and Britain. And Napoleon, who became then the emperor, changing the leg of France, continued his war. A big battle was fought, the Battle of Trafalgar in the year 1805, in which the British Navy won against the French and Spanish. In charge of the British fleet, or Admiral Nelson was in charge, or led was the British fleet by Admiral Nelson, who was killed, died in the battle. And a few more times in the neck. And in honor to Admiral Nelson, there is a column in Trafalgar Square, which is in London. And it is a monument to him. And his ship, the HMS Victory, can be visited in Portsmouth, a city in England. Did he head with where Portsmouth is? I don't think so. No, he didn't have it. The HMS Victory can be visited in Portsmouth. Another big battle was then fought in 1815, the Battle of Waterloo, and that ended then the French wars and also the reign of Napoleon. And the leader of winning British troops was Wellington, also called the Iron Duke, and he became then later, at one time, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And we don't have more to that. Now, we're going to do a few ones of regional, and we don't have time to shoot these 3 videos now. We're going to do it in the next video, at the beginning, at the end, whenever. We have them all 3 prepared. We're going to shoot them then. And now we're going to the last exercise. We're sitting tall up, we're having the sorts of feet together, tall up sitting, and we're stretching a bit in front, the butterfly stretch. So we will continue with something in the next part. We have 3 videos ready to shoot. I thank you very much, and until next time.